The Justice Department study on mandatory minimums a few years ago found that they are ineffective and cause more problems. So he's ignoring his own group. And as for the schizophrenia link, a lot of the research comes out of the UK that they say it causes mental problems. Well, the last study they did was they injected pure THC into people's veins, and they felt a little unwell after that, and they based their claim that, yeah, it makes them crazy because you inject THC, it causes schizophrenia. But none of you are injecting THC, so obviously it's pretty insane.
I'd like to.
There isn't a single, the Senate went around the Senate, our own Senate, all geriatric old people appointed for life, not people prone to exaggeration or wild hyperbole. All 9 of the people on the Senate committee investigating marijuana in 2002 recommended unanimously that it be legalized for anyone over 15. They had 642 witnesses, and they said not a single study criticizing marijuana for its health effects was legitimate. Our own Senate, who are actually being asked to pass Bill C-15 now, that mandates mandatory minimums for young people, the very same Senate told us in their report, which you can get online, Senate 2002 report on marijuana, they said that every single study that showed marijuana was unhealthy was a flawed study. They listened to it, they researched it, they listened to everybody, and they decided there isn't a single legitimate study to show that marijuana is impairing to your brain or impairing to your health. And we have over 100 studies on our website at cannabisculture.com to show you that marijuana will help brain injury, marijuana will help spinal cord regeneration, marijuana will get rid of Alzheimer's, marijuana will never allow you to get cancers of the lung, and on it goes. Benefits to Crohn's disease, benefits to multiple sclerosis, benefits to age-wasting syndrome, benefits to bulimia, anorexia, and on it goes. There's nothing on earth like it. And here's the thing. When I talked about your cannabinoid receptor in your brain, the reason we have one, we're the only species that has a receptor specifically for cannabis. Right? And if you don't use it, you lose it. That's why you get Alzheimer's if you don't feed it. But prior to getting Alzheimer's, what happens to older people is they get more narrow-minded and more myopic. Older people get crotchety, more opinionated in a biased way, typically because their cannabinoid receptor is withering away. You have to feed it. Give the old people cannabis any way you can. Right? Explain to them that it'll keep them from getting. Show them these studies that says you'll never get Alzheimer's. That will convince a lot of people, especially if there's Alzheimer's in their family. Anybody who's got lung cancers in their family, anybody who's got respiratory cancer in their family, anybody who looks like they're going to be prone to getting Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, age-wasting syndrome, anybody with AIDS is already using it, and so on it goes. This is a miracle plant. You're part of a chosen people. The reason you enjoy and appreciate marijuana is for a benefit. I have never once accepted the idea that marijuana impairs me. I tell people, why would I take marijuana if it impaired me? I don't understand. I don't take anything else that impairs me. Why would I take marijuana? Alcohol does impair people, but that's what they want to have happen. Everybody drinks alcohol to impair themselves, right? They like the impairment. They know they're not as functional after 10 beers. Every single person who's ever drank alcohol knows you're impaired. I have never been impaired smoking marijuana. I don't know what they mean by that. I have driven on marijuana all my life, and I have never had a car accident. You're a much better driver if you smoke marijuana than if you don't smoke marijuana. One thing I know is, for example, the point of marijuana, one of the great things is it teaches you that it's not about goals that are important in life. Because you know what? You don't always get what you want. You don't always get where you thought you were going. The key to life is enjoying getting what you get. And that's what marijuana teaches you. It's not about the goal, it's about the journey. So rather than being worried about getting there in 10 minutes, oh my God, I'm going to get in a row in 10 minutes and you're cutting corners and going to lanes and getting angry with people on the road and swearing at people. I meet people like that. I'll never drive with those people ever again. I'm the kind of person that says, I'm going to be late, fuck it. Get in the car, turn up the stereo, and hey, I'll get there when I fucking get there. I'll take them all out. I had 4 boys, I've known me for 21 years. When I got home, they'd always want to jump on me and do all that rough house that young boys want to do, right? That I always did when I was with them. But the thing is, sometimes when I went to the front door, I wasn't really ready for that. I was still preoccupied with my own mind. I'm driving home, getting through traffic, right? Glad to be away from work, getting through the front door. I know my kids are going to want to jump on me for a half an hour, and then, it's not like kids want to spend all day with their dad, but they want to spend half an hour, and then they go and do their own thing, right? So I'd get through the front door, and I'd have to have a go in, and then when I went in, I said, fucking jump all over me, I don't give a shit. And I would be into whatever they were into. do. I would forget my problems, I'd forget my concerns, I would get into whatever they were into. Which is the great thing about marijuana, because you can walk a mile in someone else's shoes after smoking a joint. I see it every day. I'm smoking a joint and I see all these crippled up people and I feel terrible, and I meet all these people and I'm so empathetic, I want to help them, right? Pot does that. Pot makes you see. See, we would never be cold-hearted bastards like these Stephen Harpers and these people like who tortured my friend Marilyn Holston into a heart attack by evicting her. Those people clearly do not smoke weed. Or they would have way more capacity for compassion and big-heartedness than they have now. That's why we got to keep converting people. Got to keep making them see the truth. Get them high. Get them. Give me that brown one. Any other questions?
What are your thoughts on Chris Betts when it says religion in the Bible that no one's ever been baptized properly?
Well, I actually have done a lot of research on that. We went to the scene in this movie, $50 autograph, shows me, and there is a warning there, you see my bare ass twice, which usually makes guys cringe. And but they're trying to balance that. They've got a scene at the end where Jodie's in bed, barely covered up by a white sheet. She looks awesome. So we responded to critics who thought there was too much of a naked me and not enough naked her. But I would put the biblical formula for anointing oil on me. But because we have 9 layers of skin, THC going through the skin, it's too slow a process to get to the bloodstream and be effective. So in the ancient period, and that's where Chris Bennett's book, Sex, Drugs, Violence in the Bible, and Green Gold are really great, because it shows how everybody historically got off on marijuana. And the Scythians, for example, built a big tent at harvest time, and they'd have a big fire in the tent, which was pretty smoky, so just a little hole in the top to let the smoke out, and then they'd get the tops after they shook all the seeds out, because the reason they're growing cannabis in the ancient period is for the fibers to make clothes, because Jesus wore hemp. There was no cotton in the biblical period. So Jesus was walking around, he didn't have a lot of clothes. Clothes were expected to last a long time, because cannabis that's where the word canvas comes from. So if anybody is old like me and remembers when you went camping in the old days, our canvas tents, which weighed 10 times more than any tent weighs today, made of nylon, but they were made of heavy canvas. And in the ancient period, people wore canvas clothing. That's pretty heavy stuff. So when Jesus wore hemp, he might have 1 or 2 garments, and they were constantly washing them all the time. Because clothing was expensive to the common man and very, very time-consuming to make. But they grew hemp in the ancient period for its fibers, and then they took all the seeds and they shook them out of the plant, and then they crushed the seeds and made seed gruel out of it, or hemp oil, or any of these things. Were all very healthy to all the ancient cultures. But then they took all the flowering tops when the seeds were out, and they took a bushel full of them, and all the men that could fit into the teepee would get into the teepee, and then they'd throw a bushel full of tops right on the fire, and there'd be this massive steaming, hissing THC cloud going up, and the guys would all jump up and down and stamp and breathe in heavily and sweat, and then they'd beat each other on the back with flogging things to put cuts in their skin so that the THC would go directly into the bloodstream. And then they would get all incredibly super high and get sick like the brownie overdose. They'd drop to the floor and they'd throw up a bit, but in all that they'd see God. They'd see incredible visions, right? And to them, that's the way they met their maker. They knew that if they threw all the flowering tops of cannabis on a big fire and jumped up and down and hyperventilated, they would see stuff they had never seen before.